Welcome, everybody, to our next CRYENGINE Q&A. How have you been lately? It's not been long since the last time we stepped on this stage, which I think I heard is something many in this audience were requesting. So I hope you're happy to see that we're back. And I'm not alone. As usual, I have great guests with me because you guys probably are already tired of hearing me speak.
Oh, no such thing. No such thing.
So I have with me today, as this Q&A is about learning content and our colleagues from the learning team that work very closely together with the marketing and community team you already know. And with me here, doing me the honors is Nicholas.
Nicholas, I am. You can just call me Nicholas this whole time. There might be some confusion with Nick, with two Nicks, but there's no such thing as too many Nicks. So I am working with Brian as part of the learning team. He is a wonderful person that is teaching me quite a bit about just the engine and how I can utilize it the best for teaching everyone else. So we also have, of course, Brian with us as well.
Apparently. Now you have me. Have you been talking about me? Because I missed out.
Well, it depends what you were. Perhaps.
In my vast audio engineering expertise here, I had my mixer turned to microphone only and no computer sound. So there you go.
As I said, we're here today to talk about learning, development, tutorials, certification, of course, one of your favorite topics. Everyone loves certification. So we're talking about all things learning in CRYENGINE. Brian, I would say you have prepared some answers to the nice questions that people have already been asking in chat. So Jan is one of the guys who has been with us for a long time and is working on a CRYENGINE indie game currently. He had many questions. I'm just scrolling through the questions right now. Let's take them from top to bottom because they got a lot of upvotes as well. So I think the stuff that was on Jan's mind is also on many other people's mind. So I just start with question number 1. Can you make a tutorial about changing the default character in brackets player AI in-game SDK for complete beginners who don't know how to rig?
Okay, very popular sort of topic. So for those of you who might be new to the engine, Game SDK provides a player character, AI functionality, and a whole lot of sort of specialized entities that were created back in the Crysis 2 days. And one of the things that's in there is a skeleton, a rig, as we say, and a huge set of animations, most of which are built around the assumption that the character is carrying a rifle. So it's really, really specific to this first-person kind of environment. And because there's a lot of stuff in there already, it's not uncommon for people to want to take what's there and be able to just use the animations, but substitute their character, maybe add some animations. To do so requires that you would have a rig that was developed in, at great length with a lot of trouble. And unfortunately, we don't give out that sort of IP, that sort of intellectual property. That is not my call, but you can imagine how much work if you've ever tried to do a rig. And as far as teaching how to beginners how to rig, that's actually outside of the scope of what we do. We teach CRYENGINE, and that rigging is going to happen in probably Maya in most cases, or maybe Blender. So maybe I could persuade someone who's an expert rigger to do a special event or something and sort of teach rigging to beginners, but it would be outside the engine. It wouldn't take place in the engine. And because our learning team is fairly small and the list of topics is almost endless, we have to prioritize engine topics, and that's what we're here to do. So I hate to say kind of no to the first question, but yeah, we can't quite do exactly what you asked for.
Thanks, Brian. Then let's move on to the second question. Can you make environment presets volumetric fog tutorial with multiple lighting showcases? For example, day, night, realistic horror, etc.?
Yes, and I think we have done that. I mean, we haven't done it by genre, so to speak, but if you look in docs.cryengine.com, go to tutorials, graphics, environment editor tutorials, there's, I think, a 5-part series that covers almost everything there is to know about environment editor. It doesn't get into lighting components and that sort of thing, but it spends a whole tutorial on volumetric fog, for example. And at the end of that, after that 5-part series, is a page that has, 10 or 12 downloadable presets in very different styles. Some classic stuff like magic hour or cloudy kind of winter day. Some special things like a night vision look, like as if from an infrared camera. So those are free assets that you can download and study how I did them. I think we have another live stream coming up similar to what we did last night, but Roman would like me to do, to take a kind of built out level or space and light it from soup to nuts. That given, and we'll do that in the next live stream, but an hour is not a lot of time to do that. I don't know what kind of space he's going to give me. I trust it's not going to be a castle. But yeah, whatever requests you have, just keep them coming. If they're genre specific, if you have example images, I'd like to make something that looks like this or feels like this, certainly send those along.
Yeah, and I was about to say, generally speaking, if you have questions or requests for tutorials, you can also put them here on Discord in our tutorial channel, and the learning team will take a look and see if it's doable or not, and put it on our roadmap, so to speak. Nice. Next question. Can you share some of the environment presets from your games, so Hunt or Crisis Remastered?
Yeah, and again, that's IP. It's not that there's anything proprietary. There's no different technology in the environment presets in Hunt than you can make just by fiddling with the settings, but I understand the desire to study the exact settings. So while I can't pass out those presets, I could build things and distribute them to you that do something quite similar. I can't promise that it'll be exactly the same with every single property, because I would essentially be giving them to you. Even if that is in fact what I do, I'm not going to say that that's what I did. But if you also have specific presets that are used in Hunt or some of the other games, feel free to express the interest in those.
Cool. Yeah, I can see that. Of course, many indie devs in the community are inspired by the games that we are making here at Crytek, because that are our best showcases for the engine, because we are making them ourselves. Although I think some of the indie games out there have made stuff that is much cooler. I'm allowed to say that, right, Nick?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm a fan of many of the projects that our indie devs have been making, like Vulcan, Lords of Mayhem, for example. It's just
atmospheric.
Yeah, it's just so cool. But I can understand that our own games, so Crytek's own games, like I said, are an inspiration. And obviously, I think, as Brian just mentioned, maybe we can go a bit more, it's part of the IP, that look and feel, but getting there, and I think that's kind of along the lines of what was in the question before, right? It was like lighting showcase, presets, day, night, horror, realistic. So you can just attach some of those tags to the presets that you could be making, I guess, Brian, Nick?
Yeah. I guess I just want to caution anyone that might be sort of more new to the lighting aspect and look at a game like Hunt Showdown, which took years to build. And just to warn you that even if you took the environment editor preset exactly every parameter, note for note, your game is not suddenly going to look like Hunt. Obviously, it has a lot to do with other things in there. Obviously, the quality of the assets. They're AAA assets. People, they're incredible artists and spend a lot of time on them. But also just the thing like the way the cube maps are used. I mean, there are hundreds of cube maps in there, and very fine-tuned to each space.
Also, we honestly don't want you to make Hunt 2.0. No. We want you to make your own stuff, because that's brilliant. That's awesome. We want to encourage you to do these kind of things. So I think many games that we had made on CryEngine last year, for example, were going for a bit of a horror vibe. So, of course, Hunt also has a horrific vibe, but it's completely different from, let's say, the Alien Cube that was made by Alessandro Guzzo. So yeah, I think looking at, maybe you guys can give us like I said, some adjectives to work with, like horrific, dark, gloomy, stuff like this. And I think that we can work with that way better. That would serve you way better.
Yeah, that gives me an idea for the next question once we hear it.
Yeah, let's look at the next question then. Can you make tutorial on? Can you make a tutorial? Sorry, words hard, you know. Can you make a tutorial on super realistic lighting to show that CryEngine global illumination can stand up to Unreal Engine 5?
Well, we can certainly make tutorials on super realistic lighting or super stylized lighting, and then we'll leave the second part up to you to judge. It occurs to me it might be a fun thing. I don't know if we can. It could be complicated. Nick will nip me in the butt if I'm being wildly unrealistic. But
Which Nick, though?
Nick, Gabriel, Nick. Or either one of you can nip me in the bud. You're all
Nice.
friends.
Oh, I already know I can, so you don't need to give me that clearance.
It takes a lot of time to build out sort of a decent level, even an interior space to then light. So, I mean, it would be fun if if the community wants to, I don't want to say compete, but if you want to send us some snapshots, like here I have this space and I really want to light it and that kind of thing. Obviously, I don't think you'd want your assets distributed, but the lighting setup, could be something we explain, and we could take a crack at it. You could tell us kind of what you're going for. That could be a fun thing. I'd be perfectly willing to do. I'm kind of impressed that there's so many questions. This is just one guy, Jan, who's not here to defend himself. So many questions about lighting, because it was one of the areas I felt like we covered a lot. I did even beyond the 5-part environment editor series, but obviously it's a big part of the look of the engine. It's just that there are so many topics to cover. We basically have an impossible job, which is great job security, which is we're supposed to know everything about the engine, at least long enough to explain it before our brains explode. And although it's impossible, it's a fun task. So we have a lot of other things we also, need to help you with. So we'll talk about those.
All right, so question 5 is, can you make more specific tutorials on game mechanics? So horror games, RPGs, stuff like that.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is mechanics that are genre specific, like for instance, loading, if you're doing a shooter game. I don't know, maybe other things would be like choosing different weapons and switching between them. Horror game, I'm not sure that's such a broad thing. In general, we want to show you how to build game mechanics, but I guess the principle that we have to follow is the old saw, teach a person how to fish, not just catch a catfish or a salmon or whatever, but what the principles are underlying it so that those can be applied more broadly, because it's impossible for us to address every specific question. I guess that's obvious. We'll talk more about the ways and means in which we empower you to build game mechanics as we go on here, because that's sort of been a core issue in CryEngine 5.
Wonderful. So the next question is, can you make a day and night cycle tutorial including random changing weather? So sunny to cloudy to rain to windy.
We were reading through these questions earlier today, Nick and I, Nicholas who just spoke, and he keyed in on the really interesting part about this question is part 2, which is the random part. Yes, we can make dynamic time of day tutorial for you. There is a written one. It's kind of old, but it is there in the docs, and it's long and extensive, and it explains the core technique, which is that you're going to have to blend between cube maps by fading the diffuse multipliers in and out. This came up last night in the live stream, and I can certainly do it in a video tutorial. But the random changing weather, we're both kind of scratching our heads going, how would we do that exactly? Because you've got to have a randomizer that say, okay, suddenly it's snowing in Florida, or it's tornadoes at the North Pole, or whatever. And the tricky part about that is you'd probably have to jump out of one environment preset into another if that effect, well, let's say wind, for example, is part of an environment preset. Something like a rain effect has nothing to do with environment presets. That's just I don't know what you call it. It's not a particle effect exactly. It's a separate piece of code, separate effect. Clouds are in the environment preset. So if you suddenly randomly decided it should be cloudy at 2:30 p.m. and you don't happen to have thick volumetric clouds set up for that time of day, you'd have to jump presets. And if you jump presets, it's going to be very obvious unless the player can't see the light in as much as it's generated by the environment editor preset, namely like the sun, the clouds. So usually you don't switch those unless you're in an interior space, you're sort of passing them through a maze with a roof, something like that. But we love a challenge. So, and we kind of promised that we'd do this dynamic time of day thing last night. So we'll put it on our list.
Wonderful.
Did you guys, girls, and everything in between notice that there's only one Nick today?
There's only one Nick today, and we finish each other's
sentences.
That's right.
I wanted to say sandwiches.
Well, you could say that too.
Okay. Yeah.
You're killing me.
So now I get to ask you the fun questions, the off-topic questions. Are you ready for off-topic questions?
Always.
None of Nicholas, you can answer these because I have no idea.
Yeah, but there's one for you, Brian, specifically. I think you can't wiggle out of this one.
And I'm the least qualified person to answer it.
Perfect, because that's entertainment.
That's honest answers right there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I will up the difficulty level. Brian, off-topic question number 1. Can you make ASMR tutorial for CryEngine? I think Brian's voice would be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of those things. Someone tells you, "Oh, you look this or you look that," and you can't see yourself, so you don't really know. I mean, of course, I can hear my voice in playback, but it's sort of puzzling to me that people react to it the way they do. Because I don't know, I never thought it was particularly special. When I think like great voices, I think Tom Brokaw, if you're old enough to remember him, was an American newscaster who was, a real bass. Without trying, I have to strain my voice to go down there. I wish I had that voice, but I'm not sure. As far as I understand ASMR, it's supposed to be relaxing, almost like ecstatic. This back, hair in the back of your neck. I've never heard or seen any one of these things.
You're checking all those boxes.
A, I'd have to educate myself, and then B, I don't know if we can add a voice thrill factor, chill factor to a tutorial, but
I mean, you're there.
I'm up for anything.
You're there. It's already. You can make a video on how a beaver makes a dam, and it would be fantastic. So,
absolutely agreed.
Your check is in the mail, sir.
Yeah, perfect. That's right.
All right. I want to do ASMR tutorials. We could do streams as well. It's very popular actually to do ASMR streams nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
People have so much time on their hands. It's amazing.
I mean, it's a way to relax, right? So this is good work-life balance.
Yeah, unwind. Live book reading with Brian.
Yeah. The next question is: you guys at Crytek worked on games like Far Cry, or at one point Homefront: The Revolution. If given the chance, would you work on it again? So all of the people here are working on the CryEngine team. So we worked on all of those games kind of in a third-party development position because we are developing and working on the engine. None of us worked on these titles as a game designer or on the game specifically. Homefront was the UK studio, I think. So that wasn't done by HQ. Or am I not remembering correctly? Not sure. I can find out. But technically speaking, so Far Cry, the IP went to Ubisoft. So that's a nice pitfall, by the way. When we ask, if you ever plan on, applying to Crytek, and the first thing you say is, "Oh, I love all the Far Cry games," just don't. No, I mean, you're allowed to love them, obviously, but Crytek sold the IP after Far Cry 1.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
was the best one, obviously.
Obviously, obviously that was the best one. So Ubisoft, no, honestly, I think Ubisoft is doing a good job with the IP. And I personally think it doesn't make sense to think back.
Oh, it was a different time.
Yeah, it was a different time. And this is not our IP anymore. It was great fun to innovate because with Far Cry and Crysis did innovate on a lot of technological levels. Far Cry, for example, had very advanced enemy AI, which was new at the point for a shooter.
And malaria. Don't forget the malaria.
Yeah, oh god.
Yeah.
And the Jeep that explodes when it hits the surface of the ocean.
Amazing.
How many times did I drive that Jeep into the ocean?
First game with gun jamming
Yeah.
that I can remember.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, we love innovation at Crytek. So I think what we can say is, while it is nice to come back to older IPs, and we still have our signature IPs to come back to, like Crysis.
Mm-hmm.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I think it's also nice to try new things. And that's what we have been doing in the past couple of years. We innovated on the VR market with The Climb and Robinson's Journey, and we keep doing new things.
Yeah, the creative freedoms are wonderful here.
Yeah. I mean, if Ubisoft is knocking at the door and be like, hey, can we license CryEngine for Far Cry? I think we won't say no.
Yeah, I mean, watching that game grow up at this point, it's like sending your kid off to college and watching them from afar. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud.
Indeed. And college debt. No, I didn't say that. Sorry.
Too close to home here.
Too close to home. Yeah, I'm sorry. I grew up in Germany. I actually don't have college debt, so I'm sorry. Sorry. I apologize to all my American friends.
I have some I could share with you. No, really.
Got some of that medical debt too. Yeah, I know.
All right, next question. Right before Far Cry, there was a game called Angelus, developed by Crytek. There's a source there. Are there more information about it? Can you tell us more? I have never heard of this. So I'm sorry, Jan. I have never heard of this. It
was a trick question.
Yeah, probably.
It doesn't exist, actually. It's just, no, I never heard of it either.
Yeah. I can't click the YouTube link or everything will explode right now. You see, this is live. I'm never prepared for anything. So, yeah, this is just me. I wing it.
Au contraire.
Yeah.
Cool. Then I think this is all that we got from Jan. Thank you, Jan. You're going to listen to this on YouTube, I gather, once we uploaded it there. Thanks for sending all these wonderful questions. Next up, we got a lot of questions from Tristan. And I think Tristan is here today.
Hello.
Yeah. Tristan said hi earlier, so I guess they're here. Do you want to step on stage and ask some of your questions, or all of your questions? There's a lot of questions. There's 7 questions, 9 questions. Do you want to ask them yourself on stage, or should we read them out for you? Please remember, we're recording this, so it's going to go up on our YouTube channel. If you don't feel comfortable with having your voice recorded and then later on published, that is fine. I can read them out for you.
But also, this is an opportunity to have your voice alongside that of Brian. So
I will take you up on that offer.
Awesome.
Perfect. There he is.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
Nice to have you.
Nice
Great questions, by the way.
Yeah, nice talking to you. We talk a lot on Discord, but only in chat. It's nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of Americans in chat right now.
Howdy.
So
Good morning to you.
yeah, it is morning. It is very early here. I realize it's the end of the day over there.
Yeah, ish. Your first question was your most complicated. Can you kind of restate or summarize what it was you were trying to ask there? Because I feel like I'm reading between the lines a little bit.
Yeah, so really the question there is just, as you guys are making tutorials and learning material for CryEngine, perhaps you run into a tutorial or a specific set of learning material that's really complicated, or maybe isn't the easiest to teach or learn. Does any of that feed back into development? Like, does you running into issues or complications teaching something feed back into the development of maybe simplifying it?
Very much so. Let's say it's like the push versus pull technology. On the push side, I'm quite pushy in giving my opinions, whether they're wanted or not, because basically I represent you. I came here knowing nothing about game engine, so it's fun to come and try and understand each tool. And one part of me is learning the tool, and the other part of me is evaluating how learnable is it based on the implementation and the UX. So I pummel the engineers with questions and also ask the guys upstairs on the games team who actually build games with it. And you get, a good variety of viewpoints there. And I give a lot of feedback and suggestions. I've been lucky enough to see some of those suggestions actually become features. And I report bugs to QA, and I know Nicholas does as well. So yeah, it does. It's kind of intrinsic to my job. So on the pull side, in as much as our opinions are considered important or valuable, sometimes I think more so than others, we don't build games. That's the thing. Nicholas and I teach game development, but we don't have time to actually build games. So they probably take us with a grain of salt. But we appreciate that. We respect that.
Yeah, and a recent example of that exact question that you posed was, I'm working closely making a tutorial right now that is revolving around schematic. It's a 5.7 LTS, a tool that will be used for game logic, and it's something I'm more familiar with flow graphs, so working in schematic was something new for me at the time, and I was working closely with the programmers, developers, and learning the tool, and also finding things that might not have been intended to be there. So it's really great. They benefit from it just as much as I'm benefiting from it, and it's just a great opportunity to find these things at an early stage.
It's also the difference between when you design a tool, everything. You're God. You have a set of assumptions that are developed over the development of it, and you test and test and test. And then you hand that off to someone to whom it's completely new until you really let users take a fair shot at it. You really don't know what it's like to try and understand it when you're just looking at what the interface implementation is, trying to wrap your head around it. It's not like there's 10 steps in a rigid order that you have to do. So that's sort of our job, is to suggest best practices and that sort of thing. But oftentimes that includes feature suggestions or questions, about the implementation.
Awesome.
That's really cool. Thank you for the insight. So my second question is, are there any plans to get the community more involved in making tutorials?
Oh, yes.
Yes, sir.
I will tell you the whole story. Not that it's a long story, but when I first came to Crytek and was looking at this issue of how do we empower people to become experts in the product, I spent a lot of time looking at other companies, some of them small, some of them big. Some of them I won't mention, some of them like let's say Adobe and Microsoft. And if you look at companies like this who have tons of resources, tons of cash, very successful, and a lot of people working for them, at the end of the day, they crowdsource. Because the fact is, with a product this complex, there is absolutely no way, even if I had 10 or 20 times the amount of tutorial authors, that I could answer every question, we could answer every question and create a tutorial that addresses every need in all their preferred learning styles, even including written and video styles. It's just not possible. And it's such a complex product in so many ways that you could use it. So ultimately, I see our job as empowering you, teaching you to fish, right? To understand conceptually what is possible or probable is probably more accurate. Get you excited about the product. Hopefully then the product does its job and it's rewarding to then master it and use things. You build cool stuff with it, and it is a natural offshoot of that process that you then want to show it to people, not just in terms of the finished game, but also to say, hey, here's how I did it. You may not want to give away every little secret, but some of you will even maybe want to make tutorials or write a blog post about it. And that's good for everybody. That's what makes a thriving community. People excited about the stuff that they built, and they show it to others. And sometimes it takes the form of teaching, which is an art unto itself. Sometimes it's just a demo, etc. And the more you do that, the better it is for us all. And that's always been my long-term vision. And can you go ahead and read your next question? Because these are very much connected.
Yeah. So another one of the other players in the game engine marketplace recently put together a learning portal where they kind of grouped a ton of their own stuff and a ton of community stuff, all centered around learning and just getting more familiar with their product. So is Crytek considered doing anything like that?
Is it time to talk about the ambassador program yet?
Yes, very, very shortly. So just very briefly, Tristan, so my vision has always been to do essentially the kind of thing that Adobe does. If you go to Adobe Help and you search for help, how do I adjust black points and white points in Photoshop? The results are not just going to include Adobe documentation and Adobe tutorials. They're going to include community contributed tutorials and documentation. That is where I see us going in the long run. I think that's what's best for everyone. There are a couple of issues with implementing that sort of thing, and mainly it's manpower. Us two people who are already busy making tutorials, there is no way that we would also have time to watch, listen, fact check, actually run the steps, and curate every submission. And we're going to need more manpower, more help to do that. So the implementation is probably the main obstacle. And the other thing is the larger topic of that we've sufficiently educated you on how to use CRYENGINE in the first place, and 2 people is not enough. So we already need more manpower anyway. And then there's this fact that the next major release of CRYENGINE is going to be a huge change. It's going to be enormously more friendly because of the visual scripting aspect. You're not going to have to rely on C++ the way you have in the past. And I'll just put it out there right now that the most difficult part of my job in the 5 years I've been here has been that it's been the CRYENGINE 5 era. And there is one simple fact of life about CRYENGINE 5. You are not going to be able to finish a game without touching C++. And we, the learning team, don't speak C++. We already have to have such a broad skill set to be able to teach clearly and to understand the engine tech. There are so many tools to understand, and C++ programming is a whole other thing. The good news is we now have 3 people, the 3 Js we call them, who are, I'm going to completely blank out now that I have to think of their names.
James.
Josh Nuttall, Jeremy Wade, and
James Eaton,
who are all fluent C++ programmers who are all now part-time devoted to helping us make C++ tutorials. So you're going to see a lot more of those. Yeah, do you want to talk about the ambassador program? Because that's part and parcel of this.
By the way, if we say manpower, we mean gender unspecific men.
Yes, I don't know
power.
How to say they power, people power.
They power is nice. I like they power. I want that to be a thing, actually.
baller power, just coolness.
People
Yeah.
power. Cry power. Well, that's been used probably. I don't know. Everything cry. Whatever. There are people who have finished games without touching C++, Brian. So I have to step in there. But yeah, you're right that it helps tremendously if you know a thing or two about C++ programming in the engine. But yeah, Merhoons, for example, who made Racing Glider and Rolling Sun, they didn't touch C++, and I'm not sure about Alessandro. But anyways, it is important that we help you guys along a little how to actually use C++ in CryEngine, and that's something that we had been planning for a long time. As Brian just said, it was just a bit the problem of manpower or women power. Women?
Them power.
Them power. Them power. So, but yeah, but now we have more people involved, which is great. And yeah, we're going to get that to you soon. No, my phone went into sleep mode, so I don't have my questions, which are actually Tristan's questions. But I wanted to talk about the ambassador program anyways. Yeah, I know we have them printed out here as well, but I'm hesitant to, if I take this, it will make a sound.
Yeah, I've been.
Is this ASMR already? Oh no, the noise cancellation is too good. Well, okay. Damn it. This, you get the audio team to set this up once and everything works. It's boring. Wait, I have to try something. Ha.
Nice.
Did you guys?
I didn't hear it.
Oh, damn it. Okay, well then I have to work on my audio.
I can just recreate the sound with my voice.
Yeah.
I think you guys are probably sitting in the same studio next to each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Or even that is not audible
Cheers.
because it's so. Oh my god, we can't have any fun right now.
No, I don't think so. I think this is a
No
formal,
fun allowed.
The ambassador program.
So on to the ambassador program. Thank
This
you.
is a very important point.
This is
Yeah.
a very important. I'm just teasing, Brian. I'm just teasing. I already did tease everyone about the ambassador program last stream when we had Jeremy Wade with us, who is the product owner of the new SDK. And yes, I have fancy new title, which is Senior Manager for CRYENGINE Ecosystem and Communications, which means that I am officially tasked with looking at the community, the ecosystem, and the communications with our licensees now. And I'm happy to announce that I'm working on the ambassador program, which means we want your contributions to CRYENGINE. We want to bring on developer teams who are working with CRYENGINE 5 currently, and we want to bring them on so we can share the progress of the engine before it's made public, like a beta program. We want to acquire the help of skilled developer teams to help us test the engine, and in return, they can start cherry-picking features for their games and help us to give feedback so we can make CRYENGINE even better. And often beyond that, it ties in with changes that are coming to the CRYENGINE hub, changes that will hopefully make it easier for Cry engineers and Cry developers to connect with each other on the CRYENGINE.com hub, because in the past it was a bit difficult. You know, CRYENGINE community has grown out of the modding community for Crysis 2, and you know, that was just great. Everybody shared their vision. We had a gallery once, and people would be sharing their progress. The showcase was very active. People would share their mods, etc. So a modding community is usually way more open. Also because it's non-commercial, of course, and we understand that some of you folks are working on games that are going to be commercialized, monetized, and you probably don't want to share all your little secrets already. But that's why we're setting up a program for everyone. So changes are coming to the hub. Hashtag gamification, but I think Brian wants to talk about that some more later on. We are going to set up kind of a beta program to share with selected developers our current progress on CRYENGINE that is not public yet. There are going to be incentives for people who help us with documentation, who help us with tutorials, who help us with community contributed content, people who help us moderate our community channels and keep the channels nice and healthy. And yeah, it's my job to make that work and make sure that the people who are helping us to make the engine and the ecosystem a better place will also see incentives for it, because we don't want to just take your hard work for nothing. If you're into this community and you contribute to the community, you should get something, at least something out of it. Yeah, and that's what I'm very excited about, and I very much hope that we will see the first iteration of that by end of June. And now it's going to be July because I said that.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. But I'm confident. I'm working on it, and I'm going to share progress about that with some of the early adopters by the end of June, and definitely pronounce more about the public program latest in July.
Exciting. And you get to be an ambassador, which just sounds cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Who doesn't want to be an ambassador?
I don't know. I mean, probably someone, but we definitely want to be a CRYENGINE ambassador.
Yeah.
Is it the same as being a diplomat?
I was thinking that too. Yeah, I was going to say.
Nah, I think an ambassador is... I mean, you're the native speaker here, but to my understanding, an ambassador is someone who can be on a diplomatic mission, but it is also someone who represents something, like a country ambassador or a cultural ambassador. They represent their culture, their country in the public.
Just by being here, I'm an ambassador for
Nickness.
For Nickness, yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hold the responsibility and do my part to make it seem like being Nick is great, because it is. So
yeah.
Well, I personally think ambassador is a great name. I think it very much reflects what you're looking to do with it. So excellent name choice.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want me to continue with my questions? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, just a little bit of feedback on what you guys what you said about number 3 and just the whole ambassador program. Like you guys are giving me goosebumps over here. So very very excited about what you guys are saying. So
How excited we are to get you all in on what's happening right now in terms of the product, so you can start using the product that's evolving and testing it, giving feedback, making it better, and learning it. So you're going to be ready to run with it.
oh yeah, well you guys say you're excited for us to get our hands on that now, but just wait until the bug reports start coming in.
Hey, well,
Bring it on.
we're giving you goosebumps, man. You're giving us goosebumps over here. So
Yeah.
it's whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the next couple of questions I had are kind of grouped together, and Brian, you kind of answered a couple of these last night when you did your intro for the stream, or yesterday when you did your intro for the stream. I guess time's relative when there's a planet. But outside of outside the scope of making tutorials for Crytek, I'm very curious as to like what else do you do within the organization? Any other type of roles or tasks you take on?
Within Crytek?
Mhm.
Well, before this little thing called the pandemic, I did a lot of ambassadoring, product evangelism, and I really want to get back to doing that. I think that'll probably wait until our next major release when we have a product that we're really excited to show the world. You used to find me at trade shows, doing demos, teaching classes, meeting you people in person, looking at your things that you're building. That to me is the most fun I can have on 2 feet. So as much as wonderful as this technology is and making video tutorials is fun and everything, two-way communication, irreplaceable. So I hope we'll be doing a lot more of that in the near future. Other than that, I work out of Berlin, so I don't have the fun of meeting people at the coffee machine and chatting with them. So I have to get all the gossip through these kinds of avenues. But yeah, I try and keep up with what's going on. I do a lot of chatting with people like Mato and Victor, who are generalists who can answer almost any question about the engine and look at what they're building to test it, and actually build small games with it. And then I turn them into tutorial projects. You'll see those because I've already built them with the new releases that haven't been released yet. I've been teaching those internally. I just have to use the engine every day because I have to stay fluent in it. And we divide up these subject matter areas. So I don't know everything. Nicholas is responsible now for animation and UI and a bunch of other topics. Work with the audio guys because it's sort of a specialty, and I leave that up to them. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm probably forgetting things, but
No, that answers it perfectly. Thank you. The next question is a little bit specific. It's more so pointed towards the online written documentation in the Confluence docs. Is there? And I know I've asked this before, and like the answer's been, it's kind of a gray area. We can't really do it because of reasons. But and this also kind of feeds back into you getting the community more involved. But is there any chance that via some path there can be contributions to some of the written articles or some of the written documentation, even just to not necessarily rewrite it, but to refresh it with, like, say, for example, screenshots from CryEngine 5, latest release, or just fix some of the workflow documentation that's there?
yeah, this is a great question. So you already know my point of view and my vision for how the tutorials would work and getting community contributions. But I have ownership over the learning materials, but not the documentation. That's a different department and a different person who makes those decisions. So similar issues, but times 1,000, because let's say in a perfect world and you wanted to crowdsource documentation. So if someone's reading a docs page, they see an error or something that's unclear or simply missing, they can click contribute, something like that. They type in their suggestions, and off it goes to somebody who has the time and the expertise to test their contributions, examine the docs page, and then incorporate them and thank them and acknowledge them, or write back and say, we're not going to make changes at this time or whatever.
I mean,
I don't have any control over that mechanism.
Yeah, I think I think I can at least say that It's a fan favorite, this idea of having the documentation being updated. I mean, it's the open source thing, right? Like Wikipedia, where enough people are interested in the subject matter that they are going to make sure everything is up to date always. We would love to leverage the community's efforts. But as in Wikipedia, we would have to make sure if we are hosting it, if we are broadcasting it, we would have to make sure that it's always accurate. It might be that during a long night shift that was very boring when I was still working at EA, me and a friend tried to alter the Spice Girls Wikipedia article.
Nice.
With some nonsense.
Nice.
It might have been, I'm just speaking hypothetically here. Nothing is certain, but maybe somebody had the idea to add another band member that was called Old Spice. Because totally there was some insider information that was missing from the actual Wikipedia article. I was very surprised to see that it took 4 minutes for this to be corrected, because the Spice Girls are hot in demand.
Oh yeah.
So
we should be so lucky to have this.
Yeah, like
this is why we can't have nice things, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's say from from secondhand experience. Let's say I know that it's a bit of a fickle thing. You know, we are a company. We monetize CRYENGINE, and if we host the documentation, we have to make sure that it's not prone to error or pranks
from people just like you, apparently.
What? That was all hypothetically speaking.
That was hypothetical.
Yeah, that was totally not me. Absolutely not. So
I was gonna. I don't want to cut you off if you're not finished about that.
Yeah, I wanted to say so. But as it is with, like, technically everybody can have a Wikipedia article account and change articles, but nowadays they are a bit more, you know, the internet is full of bridges and trolls live under bridges. Anyways, so what I wanted to say is we want the community to be able to contribute to our documentation, as we would probably be part of the ambassador program, though, because we have to make sure that some people who want to contribute, we have to review what they want to contribute. That is a lot of work. And we want to do it because we know that everybody who works hands-on on the engine is able to help us with it, but the review process still has to be in place, and we're looking at a workflow. But as Brian said, neither he nor we, the two nicks in a trench coat, are the people who have the jurisdiction over the documentation. But of course, we're talking with the docs lead and the docs team about this, and we always have. It's just not there yet because it was a matter of them power.
Yeah, it's them power and also platform questions in terms of the software tool that's used to host the docs. So yeah, I hope that we will be able to do that. Speaking personally, if I was in your shoes, I'd certainly want to be able to do it. And also thrilled that you want to contribute. And, you know, yeah, I think that's all good. It's kind of just a question of execution. To this, though, let me just introduce kind of an important announcement that will help along these lines. So one of the big changes that you're going to see is our website is going to launch a new version that implements features that have never been there. And most of that centers around exactly trying to acknowledge and encourage and reward your participation and contributions. And we'll do that through gamifying all of that stuff. So let's say, for example, after you watch a tutorial, you're invited, ask if you'd like to take a quiz. And you answer 5 questions that are randomly selected from a question pool. And you get your score on how well you absorb the concepts from the tutorial. And then you have the option of making that public and adding it to your, XP score, your score for the entire engine. And also your scores will be broken down by subject matter areas, I think. I'm not 100% positive about that. So that makes it easy for us to see who is most active out there in the community, and makes it easier for us to sort of prioritize suggestions, from people that are sort of highly ranked in the community through their own efforts. And hopefully makes it a lot of fun for you guys to,
It'll also help
and contribute
as well with, legitimizing what people are saying when you're asking for help, and you get back from someone who has an answer about something that they have mastered and they have the medals to show it. So
Yeah, and digital badging will be a tangible thing that you'll get for passing, various things like not just individual quizzes, but larger groups of quizzes. So one of the things that will be implemented is learning paths. So we'll take typical jobs in game development. You're a visual effects person, you're an audio person, you have kind of this job, you're an animator, whatever. Rather than having to dig through the hundreds of tutorials that have been published over the years, you'll get a playlist. And it'll say, well, if this is your job, we suggest you watch these tutorials in this order. And if you pass the quiz for all of those, then you've passed the tests for that entire learning path, and you're going to get a higher level digital badge that you can share on all your own social media channels, and you can choose to make public or not on the CRYENGINE website, so people can see what you know, what you've proved. And this is also direct lead up to certification, which I know there are some questions about. We've been promising for a long time to launch the certification program. So certification is a much more serious version of those quizzes. The tests will be hard. And the reason is, in order to really have any value, most importantly to prospective employers that you might want to go work for and prove your skills to, the fact that you've passed one of these exams should mean something, and it will, because they're not going to be easy, and they're not open book. There'll be a proctor who will watch you take the exam on your webcam. As creepy as that may sound, it's quite common in online testing. And they'll make sure that you're not looking at a web browser, you're not looking at using the application. It's strictly what is in your head. So you'll really have to know what you're doing to pass those exams. So the quizzes are little warm-ups to that, to kind of sort of study aids, if you will. And just to cut to the chase on the certification, we won't be launching it for CRYENGINE 5, which is probably understandable now with the game plan, but we plan to launch it for the next major release, whatever that is called.
Cool. Sounds good.
very cool.
Yeah. I'm very excited for gamification, especially because, like I said, that also just feeds into the ambassador program and the changes that are coming to the hub. People being able to show off their ribbons and their achievements and whatever they have contributed to the CRYENGINE community. Long-term dream of ours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like a Renaissance carnival with all the ribbons and colors. It's going to be great.
Sorry, Tristan, I wasn't. On which I have your questions here. Which question are we on?
We're about to ask number 7.
Awesome.
And that's probably the last question that we need to ask.
Oh, I'm gonna go for the other ones, but I'm gonna add the scope. I'm gonna ramp up the difficulty for Brian here. I will add challenges. But hey, relax now.
Thanks, friendo.
Yeah. Tristan, please ask number 7.
Yeah, and then just right before that, it's great to hear what you guys are working on with the gamification, with the website updates. It's just nice to know that there's so much going on behind the scenes that we might not have necessarily known before. So thank you for sharing that all with us.
Oh my God, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wow, that's great.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, so the last question is for Brian specifically. What's the most exciting thing that you are excited for with what's coming next for CRYENGINE?
I think I'd have to pick 2 things. One is the new animation system, the new animation graph, and the other thing is visual scripting, because these 2 areas are so critical to game dev and they're very complex. And particularly with visual scripting, because I'm not a C++ programmer, so I've had to use the visual scripting tools. And we've had this strange existence through CRYENGINE 5 where we had a visual scripting tool, Flowgraph, which we still use. It's used in Hunt, but it was invented long before entity components. And so it can see that an entity exists, but it can't see the components, and you can't change values. You can't change property values in response to the game events through Flowgraph. So that's quite limiting. And there's other issues in terms of the speed because of the interpolation layer to make Flowgraph, nice and visual. The precise timing of execution compared to that, visual scripting is C++ with a pretty front end on it. And the implementation is amazing. And we've been working with it since its early days here, and I can't wait to show it to you and help you get your hands on it, because it makes game development so fun. And in the end, it spits out C++. And so you have virtually C++ level speed, which is on, there's nothing faster than that, but with the completely visual scripting tool. So that's pretty exciting. And then be able to get a character set up and handle complex blends, all that stuff that's pretty challenging in Mannequin Editor. And the character tool should be considerably easier with the new animation system.
Awesome. Thank you.
So now I'm going to add a challenge, Brian. So I'm going to read.
So ready for you.
Yeah,
Just come on.
Yeah, come on. So I'm gonna read the next question, but you have to answer with a transatlantic accent. Ready?
The other side of the Atlantic. Okay, do a British accent. It'd be more fun.
Now you have to do the transatlantic accent, son.
Oh, you need from the 1900s, that one.
Aye.
In a transatlantic
Oh,
accent.
right.
We're now in the 1930s.
What did Cryenic have to give you to convince you to come onto the AMA?
No, Nicholas. It's funny you should mention this. I wonder the same thing myself. I don't remember being offered anything. And I ask myself, why am I here? I was not offered chocolate. Everyone knows I like chocolate. Nevertheless, I was offered none. With nuts, without nuts. Okay, I'll go either way. I'm flexible, but there were no chocolate offers.
No.
So I'm waiting myself to see the answer to this question, which frankly does not come from me.
Very interesting, sir.
I came on good faith. I await my reward.
And rewarded you shall be.
None of this has been planned.
Yeah, this is all. Yeah, this is. Yeah.
We love our improv. It's good. And the next one is CryEngineer a trademarked term or copyrighted? No, it's not. I just came up with this at some point. I think it's from the olden days of the CryDev community. So Cry developer, CryDev is kind of a term that we have used before for a long time. And
You don't want to do CryEngineer.
yeah, CryEngineer, I think I came up with this in the beginning because I don't even know anymore. That was like...
It was. You did just say it was a long time ago.
It was like 6 years ago or something in the very beginning. I don't remember anymore. CryEngineer, I think I did it because it was part of an ambassador program idea when we started with GitHub to also reference to our community as people who help us engineer the engine. So the game developers who work on the engine, they also help us to make CryEngine better. And that's why I thought Cry developer is one thing, but some people are Cry engineers, so they even help us engineering the engine. It's not getting better, right?
I pick up what you're putting down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. CryEngineer. CryEngineer. Just cut the E out at the end. CryEngineer.
CryEngineer.
CryEngineer. Well, that's me.
All right.
Especially when I speak with a transatlantic accent.
I love
I
it.
think it's more the puns.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true.
All right, we're at the end of Tristan's question.
Thank you, Tristan.
Yes.
Those were
Yeah, and-
actually really excellent questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for answering them. This was really great.
It's fun.
Awesome. And it's already 6.
It's already 6. Yeah, look at that. Time flies
Time
when you have
flies
good questions to
when
answer.
you have good questions. But I think there was one more from Uppermax.
There were 3 others that I see. There was Poisonous and Opelmax, and there was one that was posted tonight.
Yeah, I think the one Uppermax had was interesting for more people. I would say we go with that one because we have to look a bit at the time. It was a long question, though. It starts with, oh God, it's long. What will happen to the AI documentation? I know how to program, I understand scripts, but I am a professional artist, not a programmer. I could figure it out on my own, but such thing can take a lot of time if you don't do it as your main job. I would like to have documentation that will be able to orient those who have not worked with AI yet. Understand correctly, if I need to study third-party material, then I will do it. But as an amateur programmer, it is difficult for me to understand the order of learning and how to use knowledge inside CryEngine. There are no problems with how to control AI through Flowgraph. Working with auxiliary objects in the editor has also been described for a long time. But I would like to know how AI works in CryEngine, more about creating unique behavior for unique opponents. I don't see the full picture in this area. I don't even know where to start. now I'm in a position where I can make beautiful worlds with my own logic, events, and animations. But this is a dead world where there is no one so far. I've started to deal with behavior trees.
Long question, fairly short answers. There was also a question about, first-person shooter tutorials. When we do more of those? Both of these things are definitely going to involve C++ in CryEngine 5, and quite a bit of it. So we will be doing a lot more C++ tutorials. That's basically the answer. You mentioned auxiliary objects, OPMOX. I think you're talking about legacy entities in the Game SDK code base, which are Lewis script based, and like everything else in Game SDK, that will be deprecated and replaced at some point. And yeah, as far as the C++ tutorials are concerned, we're still debating about the two different paths we could take in terms of having you work within the Game SDK code base or starting completely from scratch. And the second, you'd definitely be writing more code, but you don't have the task of having to first understand a whole lot of code that comprises Game SDK. So stay tuned.
Well, they said they were making, they had an empty world with not a lot of interactivity with people. So, I mean, if they just want to make a simulator of my life, they pretty much have that done.
Au contraire. You somehow got out of that question about what do you do in your spare time from earlier, but I know you're up to all sorts of no good out there.
I'm a little, going back to the beaver, I'm always building something, so you just wait, Brian.
Indeed you are.
Yeah, I think there was one more question by Tufik. Can you make a tutorial on writing custom shaders? And well, that is...
Yeah, I don't even know, because I'm not a rendering engineer, whether that is CryEngine. It connects to CryEngine, I guess.
Yeah.
It's such a technical topic, I'd have to ask the rendering team how to write shaders.
The thing is, we have a Cry engineer in our community who used to write custom shaders for CryEngine, I think. But they've been very busy lately. I haven't seen them around much. So Ryan has been doing that in the past, I think. So maybe we could reach out to Ryan and ask if they would mind actually, doing more of a tutorial or documentation style thing there. Mm. It's a bit of a problem that, like I said, it's a bit interchangeable, like Brian said. The question is, custom shaders, is that knowledge on the engine side of things or more on the game team side of things? And I think that goes more into game development.
Yeah.
So we would have to speak to our game teams to see what they are doing, and if anybody has time to actually document this process. It's worth a try because shaders are always a big one. But let's say
super powerful, but quite complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But let's say in general, we know that shaders in CryEngine are a big topic, and we are actually looking at improving that in the near future. Maybe I could say that one of the most wanted R&D requests was always a node graph for shaders in the editor. And maybe, just maybe, we know that because we are listening. We're just a bit slow. But let's say it is higher up on the list as you might think.
It's on the radar. The radar is beeping. There's something there.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to address that, but thank you for doing it delicately. Yes. And to say yes.
If it's delicate you want, it's delicate you get. Yeah, I think we nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I mean, we all get to hear Brian speak, which was always a treat, always a delight.
You're the one with the better microphone.
Well, I'm not doing it much service here with a voice like mine, so... I mean, I'm pretty sure if you spoke through this microphone, people would just start melting. Like, it would just be so satisfying. So...
Oh, my God.
I'm just saying what the community's feeling and what I'm feeling. That's all.
Sharing is caring.
I'm glad people don't hate it, because it'd be tough to change.
It would be. But you don't have that problem.
Any number of different voices are number of things I could do, but it'd be stressful.
Brian, you're so great.
Amazing. Amazing. One of these days, you're just going to do a whole tutorial in some voice like that, and just people...
be careful, or otherwise people will make requests in which Brian voice they want their next
Yeah,
tutorial.
like we want Western Brian. Like, can we get Cowboy Brian? That'd be great. Maybe a little bit of Sailor Brian.
Non, je ne comprends pas tout, mais je comprends de plus en plus.
Perfect. And then we're gonna get
Conway?
Italian New York mobster Brian, and then we'll finish it off with just Brian. That's it.
I got enough things on my plate.
Priorities, Brian. Priorities.
Yeah. Community wants something. We have to deliver. That's all I'm gonna say.
Quite honestly, it's always an ongoing question in my mind about how playful to make these tutorials. Obviously, if you've tracked them over the years that I've been at Crytek, they have gotten much more playful. You can blame Alan Alexa for a bit of that because he came into my team and he had such a great style. And I was like, well, he's having a lot of fun. I'm going to have fun. I felt compelled, when I was new, to be very serious and deadpan and that sort of thing. And I'm always, trying to ride that fine line between entertainment and education. I call it edutainment. And I do think that I have to keep your attention if you're going to learn. If I bore you, I know you won't learn. But, I do watch the comments. I see people sometimes say, it's too much, or, oh, this is hilarious. And I know that I can't please everybody, and I'm okay with that. I try to be okay with that.
And going into that, the timing of them is also another thing, right? Because someone might leave a comment saying, oh, this tutorial is, 25 minutes. It's a bit long, but these are, some pretty in-depth, serious things that can't really be brushed off. This isn't, a tutorial on how to change your car headlight. It's, quite a bit more.
I mean, there is actually, serious educational principles behind the use of humor. After doing 30 plus years of classroom teaching, it's my most indispensable tool. It's much harder in a video tutorial, one-way communication again, because I can't read faces. There's no one there to react. So it always feels kind of scary. But I think they should be playful. And also, when you come to the end of a module, a teaching module, a concept, you need a little bit of a breath anyway. So we try and sort of time them there. But forgive us, we will forever be imperfect about this and annoy some of you with the jokes and make others of you lose the focus on the point and have to rewind because you did like the joke. And we're doing our best with that. It's not a science.
And the puns are they're going to keep coming as well.
They're going to keep coming.
Yeah.
And they're going to sometimes be cringeworthy.
Those are the best kind, though.
It's important that everybody who we like on the CRYENGINE team, we think that fun is part of the deal. You should have fun working in the games industry, professional but still fun. And everybody has their own style, and I love that. I when new people come to the team and do content that goes out to the community, I encourage everyone to foster and find their own style. Because you won't please anybody, but there's plenty of content to go around. You could watch Roman's stream. You can listen to Brian's tutorials or Nick's tutorials, Alan's tutorials. And if somebody just, deadpan wants the basics, there's usually a tutorial page to read along to.
Yeah, there's docs.
So,
hello, today we're going to be going over the basics of texture manipulation and,
I always joke that we have a very long workflow document on how to make a tutorial, and somewhere in that process is that we hand our voiceover script over to the documentation team, and the first thing the documentation team does is take out all the jokes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The humor checkpoint. They just strip them all away.
It doesn't fit into bullet points.
No. Unfortunately. That's why I sneak some puns in. I try and sneak puns past them every time, and they still catch them. They have a sharp eye.
They have a pun filter.
Yeah, they do.
Well, I think we're at the end of our Q&A today. The learning Q&A with Brian Dilg and Nick Gillin and another Nick. There was only one Nick, two Nicks in a trench coat.
That's right.
Still one Nick.
Still one Nick.
One Nick, one Mick.
One Mick, one Nick.
Actually, we have two microphones here, so I was lying.
We have a secret handshake as well.
We have to come up with it now for the next stream on camera, but we will have it.
We'll have that done. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out, and thank you so much for your questions. Keep them coming. Your ideas, your suggestions. We do pay attention to those things. Try not to bury them, 25 comments deep in the YouTube comments. Those are harder to find. But, hit that submission form on the contact thing and the website, or find us in Discord.
Mm-hmm. And make sure when you leave a comment on this tutorial, you just don't say anything other than just ask when Crisis 4 is coming out. We love that.
Yeah, we love that. We can't live without it.
Yeah.
Look, the persistence paid off. You got to give it to them.
Yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, they came out on top. So
Yeah. Awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for joining, for posing questions, asking questions, and just being the wonderful lot you are, supporting the engine since forever. And yeah, that'll be us. Make sure to look at what topics you might want to listen to in the next questionnaire. No, Q&A.
Questionnaire.
Questions and answers. Well, I'm sorry, it's late. So yeah, just make sure that you give us some feedback on who you want to listen to next in your next ASMR CryEngine stream. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Thanks, Brian.
The recording, if we didn't mess it up, will be on YouTube hopefully in the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. And goodbye.
Ciao.